He was losing millions, sitting in his glass skyscraper. The translator snapped. Investors from France were on their way. The chance for salvation had disappeared. Until she walked in. 7 years. A bucket in his hands, a song on his lips. I can help. And what happened next changed more than just his business. Write in the comments where you are watching this story from, because miracles are not fiction. They come where no one believes in them anymore. Morning, Northville. It was pouring out slowly, enveloped in the cold light of the winter sun. Its glass skyscrapers reflected the gray sky like mirrors, and the streets were buzzing with the noise of morning cars and the hurried steps of pedestrians hurrying about their business. On the 40th floor of the Clark Winter Tower, a tense silence reigned in the spacious conference room, broken only by the sound of James Clark's footsteps. He measured his steps on the marble floor. His blonde, slightly grayed hair was tousled by the nervous movement of his hand, and his blue eyes, usually calm, now sparkled with anxiety. James clutched his phone, on the screen of which a message from translator Andrew Miller was flashing. Mr. Clark, I'm sorry, severe food poisoning. I will not be able to come to interpret at the hospital today. No, 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 James shouted. His voice echoed off the glass walls behind which Northville lived his ordinary life, unaware that his empire was about to collapse. In 2 hours, Jacques Dupont and Pierre Leblanc, two of the most influential venture capitalists from France, would walk into this room. Their fund, Lucine Capital, was valued at $800 million, and they spoke exclusively in French, without exception. This was their way of vetting partners. Only those who respected their language and culture deserved their attention. James had spent 18 months trying to get this meeting. Countless calls to Paris, carefully crafted proposals, sleepless nights, honing every detail of the presentation. His medical data analytics software could revolutionize healthcare in Europe, but without their investment, it would remain a dream, gathering dust in a folder on his desk. James was a fair-skinned man of 55, with short, flat hair and tired eyes that held a mixture of determination and fear. He had built Clark Wynn from scratch, from a tiny workshop in Riverside where he spent all night coding, to a company worth $200 million. His gray tailored suit was slightly wrinkled from nervous movements, and his tie seemed to be strangling him. This moment could either catapult him into the billionaire stratosphere or destroy everything he had built. His assistant, Rachel Webb, burst into the room, her blonde hair untangled from her neat bun, her face, usually calm and professional, now contorted with panic. Her blue eyes, framed by thin glasses, darted from James to the phone in her hand. Sir, I've called every translation agency in Northville, she said. Her voice was shaking, and her fingers were fiddling nervously with the hem of her navy blue jacket. No one was available. Some were sick, some were busy, and the rest weren't taking urgent orders today. James loosened his tie, feeling the pressure on his throat. There had to be someone, Rachel. His voice rose to a shout, echoing off the polished mahogany desk where the fates of 20 employees, their families, their futures were being decided. Call the universities, the embassy, the schools, everywhere. I have, sir, Rachel said. Her fingers tightened on the pen she held. The Westbridge French department is on a retreat for the rest of the week, and the embassy has referred me to the same agencies that have already turned me down. I've even contacted private tutors. No one could arrive so soon. James clutched his temples. His face was pale, his skin tight, highlighting the lines that years of stress had carved into his features. Dupont made it clear, it's tonight or never, he said. His voice was quieter, but there was a hint of hopelessness in it. They're leaving for Paris tonight. If we cancel, they'll never come back. Quote, he leaned against the table. His palms pressed against the cool surface, as if it would keep him from falling into the abyss. 20 of their family's employees, years of research, millions of dollars. Everything hung in the balance. The elevator at the end of the hall dinged softly. A sound that usually meant nothing, but today seemed ominous. In 2 hours, those doors would open, and through them would walk either salvation or disaster. James didn't know that salvation was already at hand, in the form of a little girl whose bucket was almost bigger than she was. A soft humming sound came from the hallway, like a melody from another world, cutting through the hum of his own thoughts. James froze. His heart was beating so loudly he barely heard the words, "Frère Jacques, dormez-vous?" The voice was clear, childish, but the French was impeccable, with an accent that could have passed for Parisian. He rushed to the door. Rachel hurried after him. Their expensive shoes clicked on the marble floor that had seen so many corporate triumphs and failures. Around the corner they found her, a girl no more than 7 years old, sitting on the floor by a cleaning cart. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail, secured with a faded pink elastic. A simple blue dress, slightly worn but clean, and scuffed sneakers with multicolored laces, pink and green, spoke of a modest life, but neatness. She laid out the cleaning supplies with methodical precision, as if it were an important mission, and hummed effortlessly. Her skin was pale, with just the slightest freckles on her cheeks, and her blue eyes shone with an intelligence that seemed beyond her years. James knelt down to be level with her. His voice was soft, careful, as if he were afraid to startle the miracle that had appeared in his darkest hour. "Baby, what's your name?" he asked, trying to smile despite the storm inside. His gray suit was slightly wrinkled as he sat, and his tie hung slightly askew. The girl looked up, her gaze open and warm, as if she saw only the good in people. "I'm Sophia Davis," she answered. Her voice was clear, with a hint of shyness. "My dad works here, fixing things. He's in the basement right now, fixing some wiring, and I help him with his things while he's busy. Sometimes I sort his tools or my buckets so he can concentrate." Quote. James felt his mind speed up like the stock market on a crisis day. Was this real? Had salvation come in such an innocent guise? He glanced at Rachel, who was standing next to him. Her eyes were wide, her hand still clutching the phone. "Sophia," he said carefully, trying to speak slowly so as not to startle her. "That song you sang, you speak French." Her face lit up with pride, her eyes shining like stars on a clear night. "Oh, yes, sir," she exclaimed, her voice growing a little louder with enthusiasm. "My mother taught me while she was with us. She was from Quebec and always said that French was the language of her heart. We read fairy tales, adventures, even newspapers when I was growing up." Her smile faltered when she mentioned her mother, but then returned with full determination. "Dad says, I have to practice every day so Mum can be proud of me." Rachel gasped softly, pressing her hand to her chest. Her nails, neatly painted red, glinted in the lamplight. James felt a surge of hope, so strong that he nearly lost his balance, still squatting. Quote. "Sophia," he said, trying to keep his voice even, "you speak good French. Could you talk to important people from France, serious business talk?" "Of course," Sophia cried, her ponytail bouncing with enthusiasm as she sprang to her feet, barely reaching James's waist. "I watch French cartoons every morning before school and chat with Mrs. Helen Green from our apartment in Bayside. She lived in Paris for 20 years, worked in a big hotel, and says my accent is magnifique." She said the last word with a perfect intonation that would make any Parisian jealous. James and Rachel exchanged glances. Their eyes met, and they said the same thing. It was incredible, almost impossible. But here was a miracle. Rachel glanced at her watch. Her brows furrowed. Quote. "Sir," she whispered, "they'll be here in 90 minutes. We need to do something." Sophia bowed her head. Her gaze grew serious, as if she sensed the tension in the air. Quote. "Are you in trouble, mister?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but there was genuine concern in it. Quote. "Daddy says when people get as worried as you do, they need help." James felt his throat tighten with emotion. This girl, so innocent, with clear eyes, offering help without asking for anything in return. Her dress swayed slightly as she shifted from foot to foot, and her sneakers squeaked on the marble. Quote. Sophia, honey, he said, trying to sound calm. We have some very important guests coming from France soon. They only speak French, and our translator is sick. Could you help us communicate with them? Her eyes lit up like fireworks and she clapped her hands. Really, I can help with something important. She jumped. Her sneakers squeaked again. I'll do my best. Mom said helping people is the most important thing you can do. It's like giving treasure, only better. James felt his heart squeeze with a mixture of hope and fear. Their family's 20 employees, years of research. Everything depended on this 7-year-old girl. He nodded at Rachel, who rushed to her desk and returned with a stack of papers full of complex financial and legal terms. The papers were heavy, their edges slightly yellowed from frequent use. Quote, Sophia, Rachel said, sitting down next to her. Her voice was soft, almost motherly. Quote, here are the words they can use. These are business terms in French. Can you read and understand them? Sophia took the papers. Her small hands held them carefully, as if they were ancient scrolls. She began to read. Her lips moved silently, her brows knitted, and the freckles on her cheeks seemed brighter against her concentrated expression. James watched her face gradually brighten, as if the sun was breaking through clouds. Quote, it's not that hard, she said, surprised. Her voice was full of confidence. Investissement is investment, benefit, profit, contract, strategies, commercial, business strategy. Mom played word games with me with her journals from the bank. She said that new words are like treasures that you find and keep in your head. James felt his eyebrows rise and Rachel gasped softly. Her hand pressed to her chest again. Did your mother work in a bank? Quote, James asked. His voice was full of amazement. Yes, Sophia answered. Her voice was filled with pride, and her eyes lit up with memories. She worked at the Royal Bank in KBEC for 8 years until she met Dad and moved here to North Vale. She told me how she helped people buy houses or start businesses. She said that money is important to live for, but people's dreams are what make life worth living. Rachel gently adjusted Sophia's dress. Her movements were almost maternal, and her fingers trembled slightly as she brushed away a stray strand of the girl's hair. Sweetheart, she said, these people are very powerful. They may ask difficult questions, test your French, make sure you're as good as you look. Are you ready for that? Sophia nodded with a seriousness that belied her age. Her blue eyes were direct, without a shadow of a doubt. It's okay, she said. Mama taught me that when they test you, it's not to hurt you. They want to know if you're strong enough for something important, and I'm strong because Mama taught me to be brave. When I was afraid to go to first grade, she said that fear was just a sign that you were doing something big. James felt his chest tighten with emotion. This girl had wisdom that many adults lacked in their entire lives, but the fear still gnawed at him inside. If Sophia was wrong, if the investors thought she was just a cute joke, his company would collapse. 20 people would be out of work before Christmas, years of work would be in vain, and the dream he had sacrificed sleep and time with his family for would be gone. Sophia, he said, lowering himself to her side again. His voice was gentle but serious. I have to be honest, if this meeting goes badly, a lot of good people could lose their jobs. It's not your fault, it's mine for not being prepared. But I want you to know how important this is. Quote. Sophia looked at him with her big blue eyes, which held the wisdom of centuries despite her youth. Mr. Clark, are you afraid? She asked. Her voice was gentle but direct as an arrow. The question hit him like lightning. In 40 years in business, no one had ever asked him this question so openly. He swallowed, feeling a lump in his throat making it hard to speak. Yes, honey, he admitted. His voice was shaking. I'm very scared. Sophia reached out her small hand and squeezed his. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. Mama said it's okay to be scared, she said. It means you care about something. It's not a bad thing. It's like love, only in a different form. The elevator dinged, and James felt his heart skip a beat. He straightened his tie. His hands were shaking, and his fingers were cold despite the warm air in the room. Rachel glanced at him, worried, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Sophia stood there, wearing a yellow dress with tiny white flowers that her father, Thomas Davis, had carefully ironed that morning. Her blonde hair was tied in a neat braid with a yellow ribbon, and her black shoes were shiny despite the slight scuffs. She looked like a child playing dress-up, but there was something regal about her bearing that made you forget her age. "Sophia," James whispered, his voice shaking with effort. "Just translate exactly what they say to me and what I say to them. Can you do that?" Quote. She nodded with the seriousness of a diplomat. Her small hands folded in front of her, as if she were preparing for an important mission. "Don't worry, Mr. Clark," she said. "I won't let you down. Mama used to say that trust was like a diamond, to be guarded because it was the most precious thing of all." The elevator doors opened with a soft whisper, and James's world changed forever. The first to enter was Jacques Dupont, a tall man of 60, with silver hair and a bearing fit for a king. His dark blue tailored suit cost more than the average worker's annual salary, and his gray eyes held the cold calculation of a man who could destroy a company with a flick of his wrist. His skin was fair, with the faint lines of years of experience. Behind him was Pierre Leblanc, younger, in his 50s, with dark hair slightly streaked with gray and the movements of a predator sensing its prey. His reputation was even more fearsome. In business circles, he was known as a surgeon for his ability to dissect failed presentations with ruthless precision. Their gazes fell on Sophia, and James watched in horror as their faces twisted from surprise to anger. "Monsieur Clark," Jacques began in broken English. His voice was as cold as the ice on the Hudson River. "What kind of child is this in our business meeting? We are here to discuss $800 million, not to play with children." James opened his mouth to explain. His heart was pounding and his thoughts were in a whirlwind. But Sophia stepped forward with a dignity that would have silenced kings. Her little slippers clicked on the marble and her yellow dress swayed slightly. "Bonjour, Monsieur Dupont Leblanc," she said in perfect French. Her voice was ringing like a bell, but full of confidence. "Je m'appelle Sophia Davis et je serai votre professionnel aujourd'hui sincèrement que votre voyage est agréable et que votre hôtel est comfortable. C'est un honneur de faire votre connaissance." The change in the room was instantaneous, as if someone had turned on a light in a dark room. Jacques and Pierre's eyebrows shot up. Their mouths parted in astonishment. Sophia had just greeted them in perfect Parisian French, with impeccable grammar and intonation. She had inquired about their journey and expressed the honor of their acquaintance. Her voice was as clear as the morning air, and there was not a hint of uncertainty in it. Pierre leaned towards Jacques and whispered something in French, unaware that Sophia had heard it all. "Mon Dieu entenduxen. Que la plupart des traducteurs professionnels with qui nous travaillons depuis 20 ans, do cet enfant est-il appris à parler ainsi?" Sophia turned to James with a soft, reassuring smile. Her freckles seemed brighter against her pale skin. "Mr. Clark, Monsieur Leblanc is surprised by my accent and asks where I learned to speak like that. He seems pleased," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. James took a deep breath. His heart was still pounding, but a spark of hope had ignited within him. "Mrs., please sit down," he said, gesturing to a mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Sophia translated his words. Her voice was even and confident, as if she had been doing this all her life. The investors sat down, their movements were reserved, but there was curiosity in their eyes. Sophia climbed onto a chair that was too big for her. Her legs dangled in the air, but there was something majestic in her posture, like a little queen. Jacques began. His tone had warmed, but it was still businesslike. "Monsieur Clark, we must admit that we have never negotiated with such a young translator," he said. His gray eyes studied Sophia carefully. "How did you find this extraordinary girl?" Sophia translated. Her voice was smooth as silk, and there was genuine pride in it. Sophia is the daughter of a valued employee, James replied, trying to sound calm, although his hands were still shaking. When our translator had fallen ill at the last minute, she had volunteered to help. I have learned over the years that talent and wisdom come from the most unexpected places, and true value is in the hearts that are not afraid to act. Sophia translated his words, and James saw how the investors' faces softened. Their shoulders relaxed, and their initially skeptical looks now glowed with interest. He turned on a huge screen, where graphs and data appeared, the fruit of years of research, sleepless nights, and millions of dollars invested in a dream. Let me show you why our platform will change healthcare in Europe and save thousands of lives, he said. His voice grew firmer as he began his presentation. The next hour was magical, like a fairy tale Sophia might read to her mother. She didn't just translate words, she transformed the atmosphere in the room. When James explained complex machine learning algorithms, she found simple but precise words that made them understandable even to those who weren't tech-savvy. When Jacques asked questions about data privacy and strict European laws, her translation was so clear and nuanced that James felt his own explanations becoming better than ever. But her contribution was more than just translation. Her enthusiasm, her genuine joy at being part of something important, was infectious. Her blue eyes sparkled as she spoke, and her smile, so innocent and open, melted the cold business atmosphere like the sun melts winter ice. This algorithm, James said, pointing to a screen where complex graphs flashed, analyzing medical data 40 times faster than traditional methods. It can detect cancer and other diseases in their early stages, when they are easier to treat, giving patients a chance at a full recovery. Sophia translated his words, but then added on her own. Her voice became quieter, but more heartfelt. Monsieur, Mr. Clark's program helps doctors find diseases when they are still small and weak. If the doctors had found my mother's illness earlier, she might still be here, reading me stories and teaching me new words. The room went silent. James felt his throat tighten and Rachel's eyes glistened with tears. Jacques and Pierre leaned forward, their usually impassive faces now expressing genuine emotion. Sophia had just said something that no presentation, no graphs or numbers could convey. Her words, so simple and sincere, touched their hearts, reminding them that behind technology there were real people, real lives. The moment of the money negotiations had arrived, and James braced himself for the worst. His palms were sweating and his heart was pounding as if it wanted to burst out of his chest. He knew that this was where deals often fell apart in the cold mathematics of risk and reward, where human emotions had no weight. Quote, Miss Clark, Jacques said, his tone becoming serious, his eyes narrowing. Your technology is impressive, and your presentation was unexpected in the best possible way. But we need to discuss the terms. We typically invest no more than $50 million for 40% equity and significant control over European operations. James felt his heart sink. $50 million would not be enough to launch the platform in Europe, and 40% equity would be a loss of control over his brainchild, his dream that he had been nurturing for years. He opened his mouth to answer, but Sophia raised her hand. Her movement was so confident that everyone fell silent. Exume, she said politely. Her voice was soft but firm. Can I ask a personal question? Jacques and Pierre looked surprised. Their eyebrows rose, but they nodded, clearly intrigued by her boldness. Quote, When you were little, Sophia continued in French, her voice full of a wisdom that seemed impossible for someone her age. Did you have dreams so big that they frightened you, but you knew that they could help people who were suffering? Jacques paused, his gray eyes softened and his voice became quieter, as if he were returning to the distant past. Quote, Yes, he said slowly, I wanted to build schools in my village. They told me that I was too young, too poor, to dream of such a thing, but I did not give up. Sophia turned to Pierre. Her gaze was full of genuine interest. And you, Monsieur Leblanc, what was your dream? Pierre smiled. His usually stern face became warmer and a longing for the past flashed in his eyes. Quote, I dreamed of a hospital in my town, he said. There was not enough equipment there, and people were dying, although they could have been saved. I built this hospital and it has been working for 15 years. Sophia nodded, her face growing serious as if she were weighing their words. Mr. Clark's dream is the same, she said. Her voice was full of passion. He wants doctors to save people like my mother, but dreams like that need friends who believe in them, not just money. She turned to the investors. Her blue eyes sparkled. My mother said that if someone wants to change the world, you give them everything they need to make that dream come true, because some dreams are too important to limit. Silence fell in the room, as if time had stood still. Jacques and Pierre looked at Sophia in amazement. Their faces, usually cold and calculating, now expressed something close to awe. Finally, Jacques spoke. His voice was thick with emotion. Mademoiselle Sophia, he said, in 30 years in business, no one has ever reminded us why we started investing. We wanted to change the world, to help dreamers, not just count the profits. Quote, he stood up, his movements full of solemnity. We're giving $200 million for 20% of the shares. This dream is too important to be limited. Quote, Sophia translated. Her eyes widened with delight. Mr. Clark, they're giving $200 million, she exclaimed. Her voice trembled with joy. This will save a lot of people. James felt his legs buckle. $200 million was 4 times more than he had dared to hope for, but Jacques raised his hand, his face growing serious. We have one condition, he said. We want Mademoiselle Sophia to be an ambassador for the project. Let her tell the world why this technology is important. Quote. Sophia gasped. Her small hands pressed to her chest. Mr. Clark, they want me to be an ambassador, she said. Her voice was full of amazement. James sat down next to her. His eyes were shining with the tears he was holding back. Sophia, do you understand what happened? He asked. His voice was shaking. You saved my company. They give us money to help people, and it's because of you, your heart and your courage. Quote. Her face shone like the sun, but then became more serious. And what does an ambassador do? She asked. Her brows furrowed. James smiled. His voice became softer. An ambassador travels, tells people about important things, he explained. You'll talk about how this technology saves families so that other children don't lose their mothers like you did. Sophia nodded. Her eyes were shining with tears, but they were tears of joy. So I can help so that other children don't lose their mothers? She asked. Her voice was full of hope. Yes, my dear, James replied. His voice was shaking. That is exactly what you will do. Pierre leaned toward Sophia. His voice was soft, almost fatherly. And one more thing, little princess, he said in French, we will set up a fund for your education from elementary school to university, including Paris, if you wish to study there. Sophia translated. Her voice was shaking with excitement. They want to pay for my education, Mr. Clark, she cried. Even college, which means I can become a doctor or a scientist, like my mother dreamed of. The elevator dinged again, and Thomas Davis, Sophia's father, walked into the conference room. He was a short, fair-skinned man from Lato, with calloused hands and tired blue eyes that showed a quiet pride in his work. His work clothes were covered in dust from working in the basement, and in his hands he held an old toolbox. Sophia, he called. His voice was full of worry. Where are you, dear daddy? Sophia ran out of the conference room and threw herself into his arms. Her sneakers squeaked on the marble. You won't believe it, I helped Mr. Clark, and now I'm going to be an ambassador, and they'll pay for my studies even in Paris, just like Mom dreamed of. Thomas put her down on the floor. His face was puzzled, and his eyes darted between Sophia and James. What are you saying, dear? He asked. His voice was hoarse with fatigue and excitement. James approached, trying to speak calmly, although his heart was still pounding. Mr. Davis, I'm James Clark, the director of the company, he said. Your daughter has performed a miracle. She saved a $200 million deal by translating into French for us. Without her, we would have lost everything. Quote, Thomas looked at him, at Sophia, at the investors, trying to take in what he had just heard. His face, covered with a light stubble, expressed a mixture of disbelief and fear. Sophia is a child, he said quietly. How is Daddy? Sophia said, taking his hand. Her fingers were small, but her grip was firm. I was translating for the French guests. Their translator got sick, and I helped. Now they want me to tell people about a program that saves lives, like Mama's. Jacques stepped forward, his gray eyes regarding Thomas with respect. Mr. Davis, he said in English, his accent barely noticeable, your daughter is exceptional. She has done what many adults could not. We want to give her life-changing opportunities, but only with your consent. Quote. Thomas shook his head. His hands shook as he held Sophia close. My Alice taught her French from the cradle, he said. She had a gift for speaking. But this is too much. It's true, Dad, Sophia said. Her voice was full of conviction. Mom said God uses little people to do big things. Today was such a day. James looked at Sophia, feeling his heart overflow with gratitude. 3 hours later, the conference room turned into a place of celebration. Rachel ordered food from the best restaurant in Northville, hot sandwiches, salads and desserts that smelled of vanilla and chocolate. Sophia sat at the head of the table. Her small figure looked like a queen on a throne, although her legs were still dangling in the air. Thomas sat next to her. His face still expressed disbelief, but there was a flash of pride in his eyes. So you want Sophia to go to Europe and talk about your program? He asked. His voice was quiet, but there was anxiety in it. Not right away, Jacques answered. His tone was patient. She is still young. We will start with local events to get her used to it. Over time, when she is older, we can organize trips abroad, if you agree. Quote. Sophia took a bite of her sandwich. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Daddy, Mrs. Green says I'm good at explaining, she said, chewing. I'll be able to tell people about Mr. Clark's program. It helps doctors save lives. James smiled, his heart still racing from the experience. Sophia, do you realize that an ambassador speaks to large crowds? He asked. It's like being on stage. Like at the school recital, when I recited a French poem, she replied. Her voice was full of enthusiasm. It was scary at first, but I remembered Mom watching from heaven, and I became brave. Pierre smiled, his face softening. We'll provide the best public speaking coaches, he said. And, Mr. Davis, we understand your concerns. We'll provide support, resources, and protection for Sophia. Thomas frowned, his calloused fingers gripping the edge of the table. I'm a simple worker, he said. I don't know how to lead Sophia in this world. I fix vodka, I clean up trash. This is not a world of big money and speeches. You won't be alone, James said. His voice was firm but warm. Her character, her kindness, her wisdom, that's from you and Alice. That's more important than money or an education. You gave her a foundation that can't be bought. Quote. Sophia patted her father's hand. Her small fingers were soft but firm. Daddy, she said, Mom read to me that God chooses ordinary people to do great things. This is our great cause, right? Quote. Thomas looked at her. His eyes were shining with the tears he was holding back. He nodded, unable to speak. Within 2 weeks, Sophia's story had spread through Northville like wildfire. The girl who had saved a $200 million deal was a local sensation. Reporters besieged Clark Winter Tower. Their cameras flashed from the entrance, and the headlines in the newspapers screamed, 7-year-old heroine saves company. James and Thomas did their best to protect Sophia's privacy, but the rumors spread faster than they could control. One morning, a woman walked into James's office. Her steps were confident and her bearing was stately. Her name was Catherine DuPont. She was fair-skinned, with silver hair pulled back into a neat bun and blue eyes that held a mixture of determination and excitement. Her dark green dress and pearl necklace spoke of wealth and taste. Mr. Clark, she said, holding out her hand. Catherine DuPont, wife of Jacques DuPont. I am here for Sophia. James frowned. His heart began to pound again. Trouble with your Stisha? He asked. His voice was tense. Quite the contrary, Catherine replied. Her voice softened as she looked at Sophia, who was sitting in the corner of the office, practicing her French with a tutor. It is about her family. I have something to tell you. Sophia looked up. Her braid with the yellow ribbon swung. Quote, Hello, Mrs. Dupont, she said. Her voice was clear. Quote, Are you here to help with your French? Catherine smiled. Her eyes glistened with tears as she heard Sophia's perfect accent. Quote, Sophia, dear, she said, what do you know about your mother's family in Quebec? Sophia paused. Her brows drew together. Quote, A little, she replied. Her mother said they were from Montreal, but they hadn't kept in touch. She had left young and hadn't spoken much about them. Catherine took an old photograph out of her purse. It showed a young woman who looked remarkably like Alice, standing next to an older man outside a large mansion surrounded by gardens. Quote, That's my sister, Marie Dupont, Catherine said softly. She left our family 20 years ago after a fight with her father. He didn't approve of her choice of husband. I think Marie was your mother. Sophia stared at the photo. Her small hand shook as she held it. Quote, But Mama was Alice Davis, she said. Her voice was full of doubt. Quote, Sometimes people change their names to start a new life, Catherine explained. Her voice was full of warmth. Quote, Sophia, I believe you are my great niece, and you are the heiress to a fortune of $50 million. James felt the world shift again. His legs went weak, and he leaned on the edge of the table. Thomas walked in at that moment, summoned by Rachel. His face paled when he heard Catherine's words. Quote, You say Alice was from a rich family? He asked. His voice was shaking. Quote, She never said. The richest, Catherine confirmed. But Marie chose love, not money. She left to be with you and took a new name. Quote, Sophia looked at James, her eyes full of questions. Does that change my plans as an ambassador? She asked quietly. James knelt down next to her, his voice firm but gentle. No, Sophia, he said, you're the same brave girl who saved my company. Money doesn't change your heart. Quote, Catherine smiled, her eyes glittering. Your inheritance includes a children's hospital in Lyon, she said. It needs to be modernized. You can help implement Mr. Clark's technology and save a lot of children. Quote. Sophia gasped, her face lighting up. I can help children, she asked, her voice full of excitement. Yes, Catherine said, you can combine technology and resources to change lives. But at that moment, Rachel burst into the office, her face pale and her eyes wide. Mr. Clark, she said, her voice shaking. The press had found out about Sophia's connection to the DuPonts. Someone had leaked the inheritance. Downstairs, the news vans were reporting. James went to the window, his heart pounding. On the street 40 floors below, crowds were gathering, cameras flashing, microphones sticking out like spears. Thomas pulled Sophia close, his face hardening. Why do they want to talk to me? Sophia asked. Her voice was full of childish curiosity, but there was concern in it. Because your story is amazing, honey, Thomas said. His voice was soft but firm. But we will protect you. Catherine frowned, her face growing serious. This changes everything, she said. Sophia's safety is our priority. There will be people who will only see her for the money now, not for the child. Quote, what are we going to do? James asked, feeling the responsibility pressing down on him. We'll protect her, said Jacques, who had walked into the office after hearing the news. And we'll make sure that every decision is in Sophia's best interest, not for the convenience of adults. Sophia looked out the window at the crowd. Her eyes were determined. Quote, Mr. Clark, she said, if we build a hospital, we can make it so that children who don't have mothers get more hugs. Mom used to say hugs are like medicine. Her question cut through the tension like a ray of light. James smiled, his eyes shining. Quote, Yes, Sophia, he said, let's do it. 6 months later, the auditorium of the new DuPont Children's Hospital in Lyon was packed. The sun streamed through the stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns on the faces of the doctors, investors, researchers, and journalists gathered from around the world. All eyes were on the small figure at the podium. Sophia Davis, now 8, stood in a blue dress with a yellow ribbon in her pocket. Around her neck hung a locket with a photograph of Alice, which she never took off. Her voice rang out through the speakers, clear and strong. Quote, "Bonjour, Madame Zames," she began. "My name is Sophia, and I will tell you of miracles." Thomas sat in the front row, his face wet with tears, his calloused hands clasped together. James nervously fiddled with his tie, still amazed that this girl had not only saved his company, but had become his partner in a medical revolution. Catherine and Jacques Dupont sat nearby, their faces beaming with pride at the great niece who had reunited their family and reminded them of true wealth. Quote, "6 months ago," Sophia continued, switching to English so that everyone would understand. "I was just a girl whose mom had gone to heaven. My dad worked so we could live, and I thought miracles were only in fairy tales. But then I learned that miracles happen when we use our gifts to help others." She pointed to the screen where the data was displayed: 47% increase in early diagnosis, 33% reduction in treatment time, dozens of lives saved in the 3 months the system had been in operation. Quote, "The real miracle is not the technology," Sophia said. Her voice grew stronger. Quote, "It is love that is stronger than money, and kindness that is more valuable than profit. This is what happens when we ask how I can help, not what I can take." She raised her small hands, and the audience laughed through tears. "If they tell you that you are too small to change the world," she said with a small smile, "remember, I was 7 years old when I helped make this happen. Size does not matter if your heart is big." The applause lasted 10 minutes, echoing off the walls. Sophia didn't just save the company. She reminded the world that the heart is the most powerful force, and dreams backed by kindness can change everything. She spoke French like a diplomat. She translated a deal that could have fallen apart. And she reminded adults why they dreamed in the first place. Now her name is known in Europe, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is that she remained the same girl who just wanted to help. Write in the comments where you watched this story from, because sometimes the smallest person has the biggest heart.